record.
I'm not an expert at Zoom. Zoom doesn't like me, but
It doesn't.
it does. Ask my husband. Anyway.
Okay, so if I do gallery view, then there we are. I really hope this works.
Hey Aviva, I'm Holly Bell, and I am with the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services in the state of Florida. And in my role with FDACS, the Commissioner of Agriculture and Consumer Services, Nikki Fried, appointed me as the Director of Cannabis for the state of Florida.
Yay!
And my role in doing that is day to day to oversee her vision and get implemented and started the hemp industry in the state of Florida, and then help the Department of Health with the edibles portion of the medical cannabis program.
Wow, so you're doing both THC cannabis and hemp.
Yes, we do just the edibles piece on the THC cannabis because it takes a kitchen to produce those. And food safety is the division that's up under FDACS.
Mm-hmm.
So with food safety, we go out and inspect their kitchens and make sure they're up to code and they're safe to be producing edibles for human consumption.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
We talked the other day and you were kind enough to agree to do a Zoom interview for everyone because otherwise it would be hearsay. I mainly called you to find out about some fees to compare Georgia fees to other states. And one of the first things I asked about was the processor fee, as well as how much it costs to inspect a field of hemp.
We all know we're working from home, so I'm just going to disclose this up front. I have an 80-pound giant schnauzer, and I feel like he's probably going to start barking at any minute. So if I get up and shut the door, text my husband, come get him and take him downstairs. That's why he sees the squirrel outside. So
He's got a squirrel friend.
Yeah. So here's how our program works in the state of Florida. We actually monitor the program from cultivation all the way through retail up under one department, and I have 3 divisions that oversee that. So the very first part of the process where you cultivate it, that's with the Department of Plant Industry. They issue cultivation licenses which are reflective of the rules and requirements through USDA. That does not currently have a fee. They are free. You do have to pay for your fingerprints and your background check. And then when you harvest your field, we do ask for the farmer to get an independent lab, and we keep a list of those on our website to pay for that also, and their test and the coming out of a contractor to sample that plant. And then those labs send us the COA and they send a copy to the farmer. We then determine whether it's pass or fail, give them a certificate as whether they can harvest or not. If it fails, we allow them to have the independent lab do another test. If that fails, then we have a lab here in Tallahassee that we will test for them and do a third test. So they get actually 3 test tries to pass. So after they have harvested, they have a clean harvest or COA from a lab, they can harvest, then they dry it, freeze it, they go to a processor. Our processors, we have 14 permitted currently here in the state of Florida, and that fee is $650 per year, annually renewable at that same price. And our Division of Food Safety actually issues those and does the inspection for that, as well as the next phase in the chain, that would be manufacturing. That fee is $650 also. And if you're going to wholesale it or warehouse it, distribute it, we do go inspect those locations and make sure they're clean and sanitary, and the products that are going to be consumed by consumers are not being contaminated. That fee is $650. As well as a retail establishment has the same food safety hemp permit application. They pay $650. So let's say you are a person doing all of that, processing, manufacturing, wholesaling, retailing, and you do it in one location with one address. It's one fee of $650 per year.
Right.
We don't double up on the fees unless you have multiple locations. Because the way we look at it is we have to send inspectors to the location. So that's how we determine how many fees you must pay.
So are you ready to be shocked at how much the fee is in Georgia?
Well, I've heard some rumblings, but yeah, I want to hear, because if it's what I heard rumblings about, that's pretty high. I don't know how you stay in business and make money. I'm going to be honest.
Well, the initial sign-up fee is $25,000.
That's steep.
And then to renew annually is $50,000 a year.
Wow, that's steep. At the way the market is right now, yeah, I don't know how a processor could make money doing that. That's tough. Those machines are very expensive too.
Yeah, and it doesn't make sense to pay an annual fee of $50,000 when you can just register anew for $25,000. I mean, where is any logic in that?
I don't know. You'd have to ask your legislators. Has to sponsor that bill. How many do you have registered? Do you know?
Well, not many. Maybe 8 or 9. I think I have the list over here.
I will tell you, our commissioner had a vision for our program. And one of the visions that she had, and she said to the team, was this needs to be inclusive for everybody. We're not going to make this just a program that only a certain number of people can participate in. I want everybody to be welcome at our table here. And whether that's a small independent or a medium-sized company or a large corporation, we welcome them all, which is kind of how we determined where we would set our fees. We went in and looked at our costs, and that's how we came up with our pricing.
That's great. They claim that they've looked at their costs. It's 10 processors I counted. They said that 38 applied. I have a feeling none of them continued to apply after HB 847 passed, saying it was 50. It was $10,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so originally with HB 213, it was $100,000 a year, and we went in there and testified, and they brought it down to $10,000. With a $25,000 startup. And then this year they went up again to $100,000 with HB 847, and we went back in there and we're like, no. And then they only brought it back down to $50,000. But Tyler Harper said they were considering making it $250,000.
Yeah, that's out of touch with what the market is. I would tell anybody that. I'm not trying to be offensive to anybody, but I am an agriculture economics major from Purdue, and that is out of touch with what's happening in the industry. That's not a sustainable fee to drive and create a hemp industry.
$50,000.
Correct. Since your bills have passed and gotten through, there have been a lot of financial things in supply and demand that has changed in the industry. I'm not really sure. Maybe this didn't keep up with that. I don't know. Yeah, that's high. Oh my, it is high. I again, as an agriculture economics major that studies this stuff, I really am a bit of a numbers nerd. When you tell me that, what I'm doing is running a pro forma spreadsheet in my head of the numbers of how these guys make money in processing and their overhead, and that is a prohibitive fee. Yeah, I can't see how they can make money at that cost.
I'm wondering if those processors are actually opening up a place in Florida and they're just trying to get nobody to do it in Georgia.
Well, I will tell you that I've had several farmers call me from Georgia. I have had some processors call me, and we share a border. We told them, you're welcome to come down here, and you're allowed to transport biomass back and forth across the borders, and you're allowed to transport the crude oil and distillate and isolate. We're open. We welcome anybody that wants to come down here and do business, as long as you'll follow the rules and get our permit.
I wanted to see your list of processors to see if any of them are the Georgia players, so I'll have to take a look at that.
Yeah, I don't think they are. Now, I know at one time there was some farmers that called and told me that they were considering not allowing hemp that was grown in Georgia to be processed outside the state. Did they do that in the bill?
They couldn't because of interstate commerce law.
Right.
Provisions in the legislation states that it shall be unlawful for a permittee to accept for processing hemp grown outside of the state of Georgia. My concern in that specific provision, understanding that we may have an issue with the Commerce Clause under that provision and issues, and we can have that discussion offline.
And Ledge Council is making notes over there, and we'll definitely have a substitute when we come back.
Okay, that's what I found that a little surprising when the farmers told me that, and I did kind of chuckle and laugh at that and thought, yeah, they'll learn. They'll get sued is what'll happen. The cannabis industry can be a litigious industry.
Yeah.
So what is the goal of the Georgia Hemp Plan or Hemp Program?
You mean if we ask Commissioner Gary Black?
Yes.
That's a really good question. Maybe I need to do that. that. Just ask him what's the goal of the hemp program.
Existing farmers to start with. After 3 years, we expand the program.
After 3 years? Okay, so to be clear, that's not a total free market then.
I will say that Commissioner Fried had goals and a vision, and that's where we started. When I do projects like this, the best way to start is, okay, tell me what it is you're wanting to accomplish here. What do you see this looking like? And how do you see this working? And what benefits do you want it to bring to the state and to the farmers and to the consumers? And then from there, our team backed into what we were going to do, which to me was the logical way to go about setting up the program.
Absolutely. Did your list of processors that you sent me include the THC processors?
No. So in the state of Florida, the medical cannabis program has been around for 4 years, and that is predominantly overseen by Department of Health, or an office within Department of Health called the OMMU, Office of Medical Marijuana Use. We have vertical integration down here. So the 22 license holders currently are the only ones that are allowed to grow it, process it, manufacture it, and retail it in their own dispensaries.
Gotcha. And
They have to do everything.
how much is that fee?
Those are very hefty. I don't know exactly in detail what those are, but the medical cannabis fees are in the hundreds and millions of dollars.
Hundreds of millions. Yeah. It almost seemed like that's what they were mimicking with this, is that if they were treating it almost like a medical cannabis.
Yeah, it's not the same. There's not the same money and capital in the hemp industry as there is the medical.
Right. You said something about it being as an agricultural commodity like citrus.
So in the state of Florida, we have had citrus that has been a thriving agriculture commodity for us for years, and farmers have made a lot of money and supported their families and farms for years on that. Then we had greening. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, and canker, which really it's a disease that attacked the trees.
Oh,
And it killed our citrus industry down here. And
no.
it really has put a financial burden on the farmers and the families that have had these groves for years and years and years, and made it hard for new people to come into the industry. With that, one of the reasons the commissioner wanted the hemp program was to provide an alternative to some of these citrus farmers, that they could regain a crop that could sustain them a little better than what the citrus had been. So that's another reason why when we did hemp, we really looked at this as it's just another agriculture crop. We consider it just like a citrus grove, a tomato field, a blueberry field, watermelon field. We have a lot of specialty farmers down here in Florida that grow specialty crops and fields, and the fields are adapted for that. And it is very similar to how you grow hemp or cannabis. So they're very quick to move from one crop to the hemp or cannabis down here in Florida.
You said something about that you pride yourself on making sure everything is food safe.
One of the things that was important for the commissioner also was consumer safety, because that is up under FDAC. And we had, before I got down here, there were reports of people, especially in South Florida, and one of the major news networks did a segment on this, where people were taking CBD oil they were buying from wherever, and they were actually getting hospitalized, and they were getting very sick. Nobody knew what was in that product.
Gasoline.
So one of the important things for the commissioner was that we be able to test what is out there being sold on the retail shelves to verify there aren't any heavy metals in it, contaminants, fungus, molds, those pesticides, those kinds of things, other artificial additives that would hurt people. And more importantly too, that whatever's on that bottle that says you're buying is actually in that bottle or on those gummies or in that edible that you're buying. As of January 1st of 2020, our food safety team started permitting locations, pulling samples, and they have a lab that can test for all of that. And we did find some interesting results, and we've put a lot of stop sales out there, that we call them, on products that don't comply or could be harmful to consumers. And then we found some that said, I've got 100 milligrams of CBD, and they had none. We found everything. We've also found a trend of tinctures that had high levels of lead in them. And we've kind of, with manufacturers, figured out that it's probably coming from the bottles and the droppers. They're not high quality grade. So our food safety team has spent a lot of time testing bottles, working with manufacturers, educating them, doing webinars to educate the industry down here, or anybody who wants to sell in Florida, about what we found, what it could be from, and what they could do to change that and prevent it from happening to their products. We've tried to be very proactive with that.
Sounds like you're a leader
It's been well received.
when it comes to that.
Pardon?
Sounds like you're a leader in the industry when it comes to that.
I really am proud of our food safety team. They are. They've done this a long time. They've got a lot of experience, and they keep our state safe food-wise. And this is just another extension of that.
Great. So the lab that they have to hire to inspect, you said it's a private lab. Is that the same lab that tests everything that you're talking about?
No, we actually have a food safety lab, and they do all of our sample testing for products that are being sold.
And is there a charge for that?
No, that's part of what we do to monitor and regulate the program. That's part of that fee for $650. It covers that cost for that lab.
And are you open to being hired to test things for other states?
So we would help out other states, but we do not test for private individuals at the state lab. I will say that.
Okay.
It is a state regulatory lab, and we test for compliance.
Are there any other states that have mimicked it? Like, what state do you think is the most similar to your food safety regimen?
You know, I don't know the answer to that. That's a great question. I should ask my peers. We all do get together every other month on a phone call, but I've never asked them that. So that's a great question for me to ask.
Sure. And the hemp farmers here in Georgia, one in particular had to destroy his crop because the site inspection fee was $1,300, even though they did claim that part of the $50,000 fee was to cover the inspection costs. There's an additional fee of $1,300. So it sounds like your expression is like, what?
So is that $50,000 a processor fee or a grower fee?
Processor fee. Grower is $50 an acre, up to $500.
Okay. Plus you have to do $1,300 for an inspection?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we don't do that.
But you have them work with a private lab, which you said is like between $200 and $500?
Right, to collect their sample at harvest, pre-harvest.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's saying is $1,300.
Yeah, no, we don't do that. You guys have some hefty fees.
Yeah. Do you think Georgia farmers can just hire those private labs? I've been trying to contact the Georgia department all week saying, can we just use a private lab from somewhere else? So like you guys have these labs that we can maybe.
So the way you determine that is has your plan been approved by the USDA?
Yeah.
Go out on the USDA website and read your plan that the state of Georgia submitted. One of the things they will have to address in that plan is pre-harvest testing and who's allowed to do it and who isn't. It sounds like they've set it up to do it all themselves. We chose the opposite. We chatted with the USDA and talked to them, and they actually were fine with us using independent labs and letting the farmers pick, as long as we followed the protocols that they set up. So we have a sampling manual out there, and we have a compliance agreement, and the independent labs have to agree to follow the USDA guidelines for sampling. We asked them to sign that, and the USDA was great with that.
So that's pre-harvesting testing, and you guys do the post-harvesting testing.
Post-harvesting, meaning when it's on the retail shelf, that yes, we pull random samples off the shelf and food safety tests them for a variety of different things.
So that's the main testing, that's the only testing that you do.
That's the only testing that our food safety group does here in Tallahassee. Now, I have one other lab that can test hemp, and it's our Department of Agriculture and Environmental Services. They are that third test for pre-harvest. If you failed your independent lab twice, then you can ask us as a department, and our AES lab people will come out and pull the sample, and we'll run a third test and the final test to see whether you pass or not. So I actually have 2 labs in my department that can test for hemp.
And with all of your experience, do you see the level of THC allowed in hemp as kind of just as ridiculous as the processing fee? Like, I heard that historically 1 to 2% was more natural for hemp.
Right.
If you'd like to support my channel, the many hours of editing, filming, and making a fool of myself, I posted links to my patreon.com, AATFP, and PayPal below. Oh, and by any chance, would you be interested in sponsoring my next video? I also encourage you to check out the International Hemp Conference deal, which we get a percentage of the profits of as well, also linked below. The package includes over 20 presentations about hemp batteries, hemp textiles, hemp biofuel projects all around the world. It's hemping. You'll also get to see an exclusive peek into some of my hemp plaster projects with a special presentation of my hemp chocolate recipe.
We used it on our Zoom nutrition for kids 2 weeks ago. It was one of the recipes we highlighted. Yep.
See you there. And I really appreciate you watching and sharing this video. I know it's long. And before we get back into this fun, juicy, educational, hopefully hopeful, while mind-blowing video, please subscribe to this channel. We will get back to this video after a word from our sponsor.
I love this artistic expression, creating new cultivars. It's amazing. I hope I get to do it a lot more in my life.
And now back to our video. 1 to 2% was more natural for hemp.
Right. So I go back to science, and that's what my team is really good at. So where did we get 0.3 and what is the science behind that? My team actually went out and did the research, and it came from a paper that a scientist wrote. My chief scientist for our department actually called him and talked to him.
Ooh.
He said, listen, that was never meant to be used that way. I'm not sure how we got there, but a more realistic number is 1%. You're right. I think that everybody gets way wound up about people wanting to get, because it is a Schedule 1 drug, when it has high level of Delta-9, people get very wound up about that. And we've been taught for years to be fearful of it. It's bad, it's this, it's that, without really examining the why and asking why and the science behind it. So when you actually dig into that, even at 1%, if you are taking the product or inhaling it, you're not going to get high. As they say. My researchers at the University of Florida who run the hemp program, one of the very first things Dr. Brim says when he's doing a presentation is, okay, let's just be clear. You could smoke a telephone pole of hemp and you're not going to get high. You're going to get sick probably from all that smoke, but you're not going to get high. So let's move on from there. So that's really how we approached it down here. And that's how we also educate people when we're talking to them down here about it.
Thank you for all of that. Yeah, I heard the 0.3% was a genetic from French Canadian.
It's an arbitrary number they just picked out of the paper.
You know, they want to make.
There is no science behind it.
That's interesting. One more question, because I'm taking up a lot of your time, and it's very generous of you. Thank you.
Yeah, anything to help this industry move forward.
I love it. Hemp is important to you.
It is. It can do a lot of good things for a lot of people in the earth. That's why it's important to me.
That's great. So my other question is, do your Florida farmers that grow the hemp, do they have to contract with a processor, or can they just grow like for their family?
You do not have to tell us where you're going to sell it when you get your permit. That's your business. If you want to grow an acre and use it yourself, okay, as long as you have your permit and you report to us and you're following the rules. I don't care how you consume it, sell it, till it back into the ground. Whatever you want to do, that's your business.
You can just grow it for your family.
Yeah.
For yourself.
Right. And I think when we talked before, I told you I lived in Tennessee for 25 years and been involved in the industry up there. And I watched everything from large companies to small mom and pop, where the farmer grew it. He had a little processing unit. She was an herbalist. She created this wonderful formula. She had 3 products she made there, and they had huge success. So they actually consumed all the hemp they grew on their farm for their products. So again, it's the business model you set up. As long as you're getting the proper permits, you're following the rules, that's your business choice.
I'm a very raw person, so I feel like the best quality would be juiced, right off the plant, or a hemp leaf salad. I'm not partial to the flowers. I think everything about the plant has all kinds of nutrition in it. And that's almost impossible to do if you have to process it,
Right.
I like unprocessed sugars and unrefined flowers.
Have you actually eaten hemp leaves? So I haven't. How do they taste? We've sat around the table and talked about this in our meetings.
Yeah, they do have a stickiness to them. They're very bitter. If you've nibbled on a flower, it's similar to that. Like, it does give you that tanginess, and probably depends on the strain too.
Right.
I saw this video that went viral on Facebook about a woman who bought cannabis leaves in a Whole Foods in Florida.
Yeah, they do sell them.
It was mixed with kale. So you can go ahead and grab that. And I kind of want to come down there and get some myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody took a picture and showed me they were in the stores, and I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, hemp protein powder, hemp seeds, hemp hearts are considered grass by the FDA, generally recognized as safe. Good. They've been sold in stores here in the United States for years.
Yeah, but that had to be fought for also.
Yeah. Well, yes, it did.
Shampoo and hemp soap had to be fought for back, I think, in the 90s. So, I mean, it's like baby steps, but it's so enraging at the same time.
Yeah. So do your growers have to have a contract with the processor?
Yes.
In Georgia?
You'll see in the documentary that I'm making that one of them had a really hard time signing with a processor because he didn't want to grow 1,000 plants per acre. He couldn't afford it. He only was growing 100. He finally got a deal, and then he found out about the $1,300 inspection fee, and he was like, got to destroy all my plants. I don't have the money.
What if they want to use a processor outside the state?
They have to contract with that processor and show that they contracted with that processor.
Wow. Yeah, we don't micromanage at that level.
Micromanage.
That's what I would call that. That's micromanaging the program. Mm-hmm. And it's still looking at the program as a controlled substance. It's not a controlled substance anymore. Again, we see it as an agriculture crop. We've got to follow federal guidelines that have been set forth by the USDA. We do that and follow our state rules.
You mentioned that when we were on the phone, that a lot of people don't realize that the Farm Bill descheduled it.
Right, that was what the Farm Bill was all about. It took the definition of cannabis, and actually they just said cannabis sativa, but they took the definition of the cannabis plant, and instead of it being one definition, they broke it out into two and created hemp as something that has a total THC of 0.3 or less. So total THC is THCA times 0.8777 plus the Delta 9. So if you come in at 0.3 or less, you're hemp. It descheduled it, took it off the Controlled Substance Act, which allows for the interstate commerce. It takes the DEA out of it. It makes it an agriculture crop. That is what the Farm Bill did. That's what opened this industry up and made it so popular.
In your opinion, is it more harmful for the plant to divide it into those two categories? Would it have been better to just say all cannabis is descheduled? Or do you think there's an importance to categorizing it into hemp and medical?
You got to go back to the question of why did they do that?
Right.
Why wouldn't you just deschedule all of it?
Right.
A lot of people that are in government and regulatory, and when we have bills and whatnot, are not creatures of fast change. They rather, maybe a good example is we wade into the water versus diving in from the 10-meter board. That's what I think the Farm Bill was actually, a way to reintroduce this plant back into the ecosystem and commerce. And the way to do that is to do it with a variety that isn't going to get people high, which is where the stigma is. So I think it was a trade-off, in my personal opinion, of, okay, we'll let you do it, but, and when you talk to people at the federal level, you understand that they've regulated this for years and they've been told to do this, this, and this for years. So it's a lot of change for them to come in. If you would just say, okay, it's a free for all, it's legal now. I mean, it's like, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do now? This is my job. This is how I feed my family. Think about it that way, of law enforcement and DEA agents and regulators that have been regulating illegal cannabis for years, and that's how they feed their family. That's their job. They've got 25 years in, and they're going to retire in a few years. What if it goes legal? Do they lose their job? Does their department go away? You've got to look at it from that standpoint of, it's a very emotional, basic instinct and survival mode here that we're actually addressing first, in my opinion. Yeah. I mean, so that's why you've got to walk into the water and get people used to it. And we need more research too.
It reminds me of the biblical story, though, too. Two women who were fighting over the baby. And I don't know if it was King David or Solomon or a judge who said, well, I'll just cut the baby in half. And the real mom just gave the baby to the other woman because she's like, I don't want it to die.
Right.
But the other woman was like, okay, cut it in half. And that's how he knew who the real mom was. I mean, it's kind of obvious. So he gave it to the real mom. But it just kind of reminds me of that, because it's like we're kind of cutting her in half. But also part of me can't help but feel so joyous that we're actually planting something in a mainstream way.
You know, I think if you go back and look at the polls or what the majority of our society would say, are they okay with it becoming legal or not? We're well over 70% that is like, yeah, okay, make it legal. We don't care. So we're getting there. We just have to get our legislators comfortable with it. I do think we're very close to federal legalization. I will go out there and say that. It's on the horizon.
By the way, this isn't raw, but I like soaking hemp buds in my water.
Oh, wow.
Lemon juice and a little apple cider vinegar, and I just feel like it purifies the water a little bit and adds some trichomes to it. Yeah.
Well, it is a phytoremediary plant.
Yeah, exactly. Have you made tea out of it?
I have not. I went and visited a manufacturer 2 weeks ago, and she was showing me her first round of tea that she's putting together. Nice. There's a lot of creative products coming out with this, and we do allow the flower to be sold here in Florida, and that created a very interesting dialogue with my team about smoking. And I said, well, now, wait a minute. You've got to think of a flower, hemp flower, being sold as produce, because they're not always going to smoke it. Look what you're doing with it. You're going to make tea with it. You're going to put smoothies.
I use it as spices on, pasta, on pasta sauces. I don't eat pasta right now, but, like you can put it on anything. You could put it on your eggs. I made a pain relieving tea for a friend last night with like fresh ginger, a little bit of bud, and, there was no getting high. It's just
but some pain relief.
Yeah, it's anti-inflammatory, and it's really great. There's actually a place here that actually sold it as flowers on Valentine's Day, like with a bunch of roses and some hemp flowers.
Oh, that's nice. How cute.
Beautiful. Most people do smoke it, but...
A lot do, but a lot use it like you do, too. So
why should we not be allowed to do whatever?
We do permit that in Florida. It's allowed.
Yeah, and we've had it in Georgia, but supposedly HB 847 is threatening that, and I haven't gotten all the logistics about that, but still doing my research. Still doing my research. It's a big knot to unweave over here. But thanks so much for this conversation.
You're welcome. It was fun.
Yeah, it really was. And you have a lot of knowledge and experience. Georgia farmers are welcome to hop on over to the border and grow hemp here. You don't have to be a state resident to grow here.
You don't. You just have to have a farm and a location in the state of Florida. It has to be zoned agriculture industrial, and we allow for it to be grown inside or out. And we don't limit. You can do literally one plant or thousands. That's your choice. Again,
If someone owns a restaurant in Florida, can they grow it in the restaurant? Is that zoned industrial?
no, I doubt a restaurant would be in an industrial area. But if the restaurant was, then yes, they could. If they had a separate facility out back, yeah, they could grow it if it's zoned properly.
Okay, so it has to be zoned for agriculture or industrial.
Mm-hmm. We do not allow home grow here in the state of Florida because there's no real great way for inspectors to go in your home and inspect that. So that was our hesitation for doing that.
What would they have to inspect for? Just the THC level?
Well, you do have to have the harvest sampling, but in the USDA plan, you are required to go out and visit the location once a year.
Okay.
And we do that. So that was our hesitation. If they're growing it inside a house, getting in the house, there's just a lot of things you have to think about when you start looking at programs at that level.
I wonder what could be a solution for that.
I don't know. There's got to be some out there, but our first and primary focus was to get the industry up and going and then tackle some of these other issues further down the road.
Great. Well, if you come up with a solution, I'd love to hear it. I'm really pushing for that in Georgia because it seems to me that the only way to avoid corruption is to make things free and available and accessible.
That's a good point.
All right. Do you have any last words that you want to share with Georgia about hemp?
Well, we welcome anybody to come down here and talk to us. And I do talk to your regulators occasionally. And we are always here to be a resource for people and help whoever might need help to move this industry forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for all you're doing.
Yeah, I'm just absolutely passionate about this.
Yeah, without people like you, we wouldn't have an industry. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, without hemp, we wouldn't have an industry.
That's true.
It's an incredible plant. And, it's like finishing that last piece of food on your plate. It's like there's just like a little bit more we need to do here to just push her through, like final rebirth. We have lost so much because of hemp prohibition.
Yeah, it's getting there.
Yeah, absolutely. Hempdemic2020.who songwriting. I planted hemp today, coming soon. In the next video, you will find out more about how HB 847 was passed and the issues it presents for Georgia hemp farmers, processors, businesses, and you.
And I'm ready.
Yeah, sing it with me. Sing it with me.
The fact that we allow the processes, as legislators, our district senators here to make decisions, sound decisions.
They're trying to find people to go out in the field, check those THC levels.
I'm very healthy when it comes to my physical because of CBD.
You sound wrong about that.
I didn't want to grow 1,000 plants per acre.
You're absolutely correct.
Are you laughing with me or at me?
Please hang up and try again.
Let me know if you need anything else, okay?
I will, definitely. Have an amazing day. Thank you.
All right, you have a good week. Bye.
Bye.